Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Noble and perfectly enlightened one. Namo Sadanto Sujedoye Alahadi Samya Sambuddhoje. To Sujedoye Alahadi Samya Sambuddhoje. Together. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。The unsurpassed, deep, profound, subtle, wonderful Dharma in 100,000 million eons is difficult to encounter. Now that I've come to receive and hold it within my sight and hearing, I vow to fathom the thus come one's true and actual meaning. Good evening, everybody. Today is August 2nd, 2014, a Saturday night, and we're at Berkeley Buddhist Monastery, about to start the Avatamsaka Sutra lecture, or you could say the Flower Garland Sutra is another way we translate the text. So we begin the lecture by first reciting the name of the sutra text, and you'll find it on the booklet in front of you. So if I know there's not so many people here at the moment, I don't know if people will come later, but if people would like to sit up, you can move to the front a little bit. That would be helpful, so people don't have to walk by you when they come in. Yeah, you can use the second row, I guess that's fine. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so if we recite the name of the sutra text, it's Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Jing Hua Yan Hai Hui Fo Pusa. Okay. Learn how to do this. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Jing Hua Yan Hai Wei Fo Bu Sai. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Jing Hua Yan Hai Wei Fo Bu Sai. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Jing Hua Yan Hai Wei Fo Bu Sai. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Jing Hua Yan Hai Wei Fo Bu Sai. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Jing Hua Yan Hai Wei Fo Bu Sai. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Jing Hua Yan Hai Wei Fo Bu Sai. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yan Jing Hua Yan Hai Wei Fo Bu Sai. So if you could please turn your books to page 4 and page 5. Page 4 and page 5. So just to quickly introduce our sutra tonight, we're lecturing on the Avatamsaka Sutra, also called the Flower Garland Sutra. And we're lecturing particularly on the chapter called the 10 Grounds. the 10 grounds of the Bodhisattva. We sometimes translate the 10 stages of the Bodhisattva. So basically, the Bodhisattva has done a lot of practice at this point, and he's reached a place where he's going towards Buddhahood, and he's basically got these 10 stages and an additional 2 more stages, and then Buddhahood. So this is very, you can say, late in the career of the Bodhisattva. He's almost there, and we're right now on the 6th ground of that process. So tonight we're going to investigate the very beginning of the 6th ground of the Bodhisattva on this ground. The gods and the devas and the goddesses are actually in this part still singing their praises before Vajra Treasury Bodhisattva will speak on the 6th ground. To give people a little bit of context, if you're not familiar with Buddhist sutras, I think one way to look at it is that they're handbooks for being a good person, you could say. Especially the Avatamsaka Sutra. It's almost like putting the most ideal, the most pure and good role model you can possibly find, and it puts it on a piece of paper, and you can read about it and think, wow, is that even possible? And right now at the City of 10,000 Buddhas, we actually have a transmission of the Bodhisattva precepts, which is basically, you could say, the vows or the precepts, the guidelines for people who would like to cultivate the Bodhisattva path. It gives the framework for how you cultivate as a Bodhisattva. And so people can make that commitment and say, I want to take those precepts, take those vows, and cultivate according to those guidelines. So this whole week, we have about 6 hours of classes a day, and we're studying the Bodhisattva precepts together as a group at the City of 10,000 Buddhas. And it's very nice. It's interesting because it's literally, you're sitting there with, for the men's side, we have an English group, about 20 some men who've made a commitment to the Bodhisattva path and want to study it. And they're very, very seriously looking into the principle and saying, how can I hold this precept well? And so it's like, as I think about it, it's like a school for being good. You're talking around, okay, so how do I take a loss? And everybody's like, I have this idea. How about this idea? Well, I still kind of feel resentful when I take a loss. What can I do to let go of my resentment? Well, you can contemplate emptiness. Okay, so we're like having these discussions about how to be good people, how to try to do this in this modern times, because these are lay people who've made a commitment to say, I want to take the lay Bodhisattva precepts, and I'm going to take these precepts and then go back out into my life outside in the world. So how am I going to do that? At the end of that sutra text, it says, there's 2 types of bodhisattvas. There's monastic bodhisattvas and lay bodhisattvas. For the monastic bodhisattvas, to hold the bodhisattva precepts is not that hard. For lay bodhisattvas, it's very hard. This is why? Because they're surrounded by difficult conditions. And so that's true. I mean, in the world outside, where you're not, these guidelines of life, just the basic rules for how to be a person, aren't expected, aren't the baseline. So for people to say, well, I'm not going to kill, or I'm not going to be greedy, or I'm going to, I'm not going to lie at all. I'm not going to use false speech at all. I'm not going to gossip at all. How does that work when I'm out in the world? How am I going to work? I want to live a life that's vegetarian. I want to be in a family. How do I work with my wife and kids if they're not? So those are the real life discussions we have in the class about how do we deal with those situations at home, and we all share our experiences. So it's very nice. So that's the beginning. Right there is the seed for this. Right here is the, you could say the, not quite to the goal yet, but getting there. The Bodhisattva here is very far along. In the classes at the 6,000 Buddhas right now, we're at the very beginning stage. We're in the process of learning the beginning context of the Bodhisattva. So here it would be like the best of the best. We're looking at the best of the best here as an example. Okay, so with that introduction, I would like to start reading the text, and we're on page 4. And we're on this section, the third verse down on the Chinese, as well as the fifth on the page 5, we start with if one can connect with the nature of dharmas. So how we do it here is we recite the Chinese together. I'll recite it first, and then people can respond, and then we read the English together. So we have because this is actually praises that the devas have sang. We were going to do a kind of a simple chant that people can follow. Okay, so we're on the third verse, starting with 若能通达诸法性. So, okay. 若能通达诸法性，若能通达诸法性，与有与无性不同，与无性不动，谓于就是勤修行，谓于就是勤修行。此佛口僧尊佛子，佛口僧尊佛子。So we recite the next on the English together. If one can connect with the nature of dharmas and be impartial towards existence and non-existence, and motivated by a wish to save the world, cultivate with vigor, such a person becomes reborn from the Buddha's teachings and is a true Buddhist disciple. Okay, and so tonight, again, we have Dharma Master Jin-Fo here to join in the lecture. I gave a brief introduction about him last time, that he's probably the oldest in terms of years, actual age in our monastery, in the City of 10,000 Buddhas, and for sure here down in Berkeley Monastery as well. And he's somebody who I actually spent quite a bit of time with, because when we're training as monastics at the City of 10,000 Buddhas, we pretty much spend the entire day together. You get up in the morning about 3:30, 3:40 together. You all walk together to the Buddha Hall, and you spend the whole day together, going to ceremonies, working together, doing ceremonies, eating together, doing ceremonies together, working together, meditating together, going to ceremony together, going to lecture together, ceremony together, going to sleep. And that's our whole day. And so we probably spend a whole of 14, 15 hours, literally standing next to each other all day long, or sitting right next to each other all day long. And so we got to know each other quite well. And as I said, Jin-Fo was always a very good role model and a kind of encouragement, because he was very elderly, and he worked as hard and did the whole schedule and practice as everybody else did. And so for myself, it's like if I felt like I couldn't make it, I can look over at Jin-Fo and go, if he can do it, I can do it too. So yeah, so he's going to start lecturing on this section. Okay.
诸佛菩萨、仙公上人，各位善知识，大家晚安。今天我们继续在研究这个华严经的第六地菩萨。上个星期就是我们已经有讲到这个法性的本来都是没有形象的，然后而且它是清净平等的。那今天我们再继续在这个经典再继续能够再探讨，就是假如是说大家能够修行继续能够通达这个法性，然后在有跟无都心里不动的话呢，那而且大家能够依照这样子去修行，那这样子就是真正的 佛讲出来的我们这个真的佛弟子，所以这个是晚上所要探讨的一个重点。
So all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, good and wise advisors and friends, good evening everybody. So tonight we are lecturing on the sixth ground Bodhisattva. And last week we discussed and investigated the Dharma nature, which you can say is quiet and free of any marks, and it is pure and you can say level and has equanimity. It's just level and equal. And so tonight we're going to continue to investigate this principle. And if we can truly understand this and have our minds not move at all, completely still, then in that way, as the Buddha says here, we can be a true Buddhist disciple.
在神光上呢有解释这个一有一无心不动，这个一有就是有为法，那一无就是无为法。那假如说我们能够都能够在有跟无能够都不影响到我们心的话，那这样子去修行的话，这个是就能够成为真正的佛子。今天晚上我想要介绍这个以有跟以无，就是有为法跟无为法的一个心法。这个讲起来就是我们的心法，心不动。那这个我们最著名的就是最有名的就是天津菩萨的白法门。
So in the commentary of the Venerable Master Hua, he talks about here, when we talk about impartial towards existence and non-existence, he says that existence is discussing conditioned dharmas, while non-existence is referring to unconditioned dharmas. And so if both of these dharmas don't affect us, and our minds can truly not move, they can be unmoving. And so when we do that, we can become a true Buddhist disciple. So today I would like to introduce the conditioned and unconditioned dharmas and look at it from the perspective of the, you could say, mental dharmas, the mind dharmas, the components of the mind, and how our mind doesn't move. And so here, probably the most famous text that people know about is by a Bodhisattva named Vasabandhu Bodhisattva. And he wrote a text that is very central called the Shastra on the 100 Dharmas. The 100 Dharmas basically are 100 ways of classifying the mental elements of the mind and everything. Basically trying to classify everything in 100 categories.
所以这个白法明文论的这个很有名，就是天津菩萨。天津菩萨其实讲起来也非常给我们一个很好的模范。他另外还有一个哥哥，就是无着菩萨。那这个天津菩萨，他刚开始的时候，他是学习小乘就是小乘的一些经典。那他不相信大乘。那后来他哥哥就是无着菩萨，为了能够来引导他来学习这个大乘的，他有一天就是说他生病了，然后就请他弟弟来见面一下，然后就请他见面的时候顺便请他送一些大乘的经典。那 他诵了这个大乘的经典之后，我发觉他以前所有的见解都是不够圆满，而且他甚至于以前都有诽谤过这个大乘的佛法。
So this Bodhisattva named Vasabandhu Bodhisattva, he's actually a very good role model for us as cultivators. He had an older brother named Sangha Bodhisattva. Sangha Bodhisattva used to study the Mahayana teachings, the Great Vehicle teachings, while his brother Vasabandhu Bodhisattva specifically studied the Small Vehicle Dharmas. And so he didn't have any faith in the Mahayana sutras or teachings. In fact, he even slandered and criticized the Mahayana teachings. So his brother, seeing this situation, wanted to lead him to learn the Mahayana Dharma. And so he said that he was sick and was hoping that his younger brother, Vasabandhu Bodhisattva, would come and visit him. And so when Vasabandhu Bodhisattva came to see him, he said, "Would you please recite some of these Mahayana sutras I have here on my behalf?" As he made that request to his brother. And so his brother agreed. And as he started reciting these sutras, he realized that all the previous studies he has done were not complete. They only got you part of the way, but not complete. And so he realized his mistakes in the past, and realized that he should have studied the Mahayana Dharmas.
那他就觉得很惭愧，诵完经以后，就跟他的哥哥讲，我要割手头，把手头割掉，因为以前诽谤大乘这个经典，然后他的哥哥就跟他讲，你既然去诽谤，用手头去要割掉手头，用手头来诽谤这个大乘经典，那你干脆就不要割掉，用这个手头来弘法大乘的佛法。所以他后来他就继续的努力用功，然后就做成了后面很多的著作，最有名的就是《白话明文论》。
So at that point, Vasabandhu Bodhisattva felt a great deal of regret and shame and remorse. He thought, "Oh my goodness, I've slandered the Mahayana Sutras, and they are so wonderful and perfect. I'm going to cut off my tongue." He was going to cut his tongue off because he thought, he made this mistake. And so his older brother said, "Okay, wait, don't cut out your tongue. You slandered the Mahayana Sutras in the past. That's true, but rather than slander from now on and criticize, what you can do instead is use your tongue to propagate, to support the Mahayana teachings. That'd be a better way to use your tongue, so you don't have to cut it out." So Vasabandhu Bodhisattva thought about that, and he agreed. And so he went on to cultivate very vigorously, and ended up writing many commentaries. And one of the most famous is this particular one called the 100 Dharmas Shastra. It's called To Understand the 100 Dharmas Shastra.
所谓稍微解释一下这个白法，就是它这个其实是这一切法就是包括有为法跟无为法。所以刚才我们读经的时候就是说有以无，这个就是讲有为法跟无为法。那有跟无的话，有里面有为法，所谓有为就是有因缘造作的法，这个是有为法。像我们讲的比较俗一点，就是我们 能够看到，能够做到能够这一些都是有为法。那无为法呢，就是没有因缘产生的，它本来就是有的，就像我们的自性这些像虚空真如这些都是无为法。那我们修行，我们像我们在家，甚至于出家一样，我们是用有为的。我们现在所有的一些能够跟因缘能够集合来所做的，当然我们是要修善法，这个善法就会跟道相应。所以我们从有为里面，然后去修行，就会到无为法。所以，但是到最后，以有以无，我们都不要去执着这一些。那这个是我们晚上的一个所要鼓励我们修行方面所要了解的。
So we're going to go pretty deep. Okay. So you have the 100 Dharmas Shastra, and this describes all the various dharmas there are. Dharmas meaning phenomena. All the various phenomena there are. So there's the conditioned phenomena and the unconditioned phenomena. So if you look at the translation, probably the better translation rather than existence and non-existence would be the conditioned and the unconditioned. So if one can connect with the nature of dharmas and be impartial towards the conditioned and the unconditioned. So here, when you say the conditioned dharmas or conditioned phenomena, it means every single thing that we see, the forms we see, everything that comes into being because of various conditions. Things make it up. So that's the conditioned dharmas. Now there are things that are unconditioned. And what are unconditioned? Well, our fundamental awakened nature, that is unconditioned. The empty space is unconditioned. And true suchness is unconditioned. So as a cultivators, right, regardless if we're lay people cultivating at home or we're monastics cultivating the monastery, most of the time we're all using the conditioned dharmas to cultivate. And we're trying to cultivate good dharmas. We're trying to become better people. And these good dharmas or skillful dharmas are the dharmas that lead us onto the path, lead us onto the way. And then this path will lead us to the unconditioned. And by walking on the unconditioned, at one point, we also have to let go of the unconditioned dharmas and not have any attachment to that. So that's what we are investigating tonight, is basically the Bodhisattva here, or you could say the principle here is that you are unattached to both the conditioned and the unconditioned dharmas.
在我们到修行，要像今天晚上讨论的，要怎么样子才是真佛子呢？我想跟大家提出一些，就是我们像刚才金传师讲的这个受菩萨戒，这个是一个真佛子。我想这个是非常值得来这边所赞叹的，因为依照末世在看过2次的这个在圣尘受菩萨戒的情况，每当这个佛子戒子、菩萨戒子要受戒的时候，所有的万佛圣尘的这个整个的气氛都不一样。整个因为这个受菩萨戒，它的发心是跟受五戒不一样，完全不一样。而且这个是发大心，而且受戒完以后，不只是我们今生、来生都是还是存在的，所以近未来际都是我们这个戒都还是存在的。
So we talk about tonight about true Buddhist disciples. Here, the Jin-Chuan mentioned that there's the Bodhisattva precepts now being transmitted at the City of 10,000 Buddhas. And to take the Bodhisattva precepts is to become a true Buddhist disciple. This is very much worth praising and extolling. Myself, I've seen the Bodhisattva precepts transmitted at the City of 10,000 Buddhas 2 times, the lay Bodhisattva precepts transmitted 2 times. Each time the transmission was happening, you could see the atmosphere at the City of 10,000 Buddhas was very different. Everyone was, you could say, extremely happy, and the spirit of the place was quite wonderful. It's the resolve that these people were making was far, you could say, far surpassed what usually it feels like where people take the 5 precepts, because these people are making a resolve to walk the Bodhisattva path, and these precepts are not just for one life. It's not just to take it for one life, but they're for life after life, from now all the way to the future until you realize Buddhahood. So it's a precept substance that you keep with you life after life.
受菩萨戒讲起来有一些人他真的不敢受，像我在明尼苏达佛教会的时候，因为我从明尼苏达佛教会来的，那我知道这个受菩萨戒的好处，然后真的是不一样。那我每次去鼓励明尼苏达的那些佛友们能够来受戒，他们都不敢来，但是今年非常发心，他们总共有5位来，这个是值得非常高兴的。因为真的受菩萨戒发心的话，那他几乎会说无我，因为我们就谈到说这个有跟无会变成无我，他做任何事情都是很主动的，你主动你心里就会欢喜高兴，那你被动的话，像人家叫你做，你有时候不高兴，这个都不会，所以这个佛菩萨的发心完全不一样。所以这个那像我像在佛殿里面那个每次做早晚课或者是那个上课晚以前受菩萨戒上课晚，他们都会排队，从教室走到佛殿，然后这个路上也都会打木鱼，然后跟着队伍走到佛殿。他们真的很高兴，走进佛殿所唱出来的声音都完全不一样，都不一样，你会觉得是真的真的这个受菩萨的佛子真是他们的法喜真是不一样。所以我们佛教经典也有讲，就是说你受菩萨佛子受菩萨戒就入佛位，就你已经就好像你注册入学校你要注册，你不管大学那样子，你就入了这个佛位。但是当然还不是佛，我们称当然还不是，但是他已经有入了这个佛位的这个，所以有这样子的一个经典的给大家一个鼓励，这个是佛陀亲自讲的。
So for the Bodhisattva precepts, there are many people who are afraid to take the Bodhisattva precepts. I came from Minnesota, and there's a Buddhist association there, and I know how wonderful these precepts are, and so I encourage my fellow cultivators there to see if they can take the Bodhisattva precepts. But in years past, they always felt it was too difficult, so they didn't go and take them. However, this year, 5 people came from Minnesota to take the Bodhisattva precepts, which makes me very happy, because to make this resolve to take the Bodhisattva precepts is no small matter. It really is a step in trying to reduce yourself, and you become very self-motivated to cultivate. You have this kind of additional internal resolve and spirit to practice, and it comes from a very joyful place. If we're just kind of passive in our cultivation and other people are telling us to do something, oftentimes we can be unhappy because other people forcing us to do something, we're not very happy. Rather, it comes from somewhere inside, this kind of joyfulness. And so when I'm there during these transmissions, during the morning ceremony, the evening ceremony, during the classes, when people finish the classes, everybody lines up together and recites together single file to the Buddha hall and chants in the Buddha hall. And you can see that everybody's so joyful. Just the way that they chant, the way that they're concentrated is quite something. You can really see that they're true Buddhist disciples. There's a saying in the sutras that says, when you take the Bodhisattva precepts, you enter the Buddha's position. What this means is that basically when you take the Bodhisattva precepts, it's like you're signing up in school. You're signing up to basically become a Buddha. So that's the beginning. You're starting on the path to realize Buddhahood. So it's an important step.
我们再继续讨论这个真佛子的这个我们所能够学习到的，除了说刚才讲的受菩萨戒的这个，当然我们讲修行，就是最重要要能够真佛子，当然就是第一个你要先能够皈依三宝，再来就是受五戒，然后再受菩萨戒。受菩萨戒完，刚才也有解释说，菩萨戒也有出家的菩萨戒。出家像我们每个月都要诵2次诵戒，就是受完菩萨戒以后为了要保持你的整个的心，整个持戒，所以每个月都会有2次的这个要一起诵戒，表示说不要忘记提醒大家。像我们出家众也是一样，要每个月除了诵比丘戒外，还要诵菩萨戒。菩萨戒的话，出家菩萨戒是10诵48，那在家是6诵28，所以不一样所以这个我们修行就是要能够常常注意到我们该做的事情，就是不要忘记。所以尤其是像既然受了菩萨戒了以后，我们就是要保持，这个是一个很重要的。
So again, to discuss this principle of being a true Buddhist disciple, what can we learn from this line, being a true Buddhist disciple? It's not just the Bodhisattva precepts that allows one to enter the Buddha's teachings. If we talk about it traditionally, you first take refuge in the 3 jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. That's the first step in becoming a Buddhist. And then you take the 5 precepts. That's the next step. And then you can take the lay Bodhisattva precepts, which have a total of 6 major precepts and 28 minor precepts. And then there's the monastics. In our tradition, the monastics take the precepts that are in the Brahmanet Sutra, called the 10 major and 48 minor precepts. And so these precepts we recite twice a month. And this is something we do all together. And this way we don't forget the commitments we've made, and we can keep holding them well. So for the monastics, we recite our monastic precepts twice a month, as well as the Bodhisattva precepts twice a month. And the lay people also recite for the lay Bodhisattva precepts twice a month. And this tells us what we're supposed to do. And so then we can uphold them properly in our lives.
我 我们受了菩萨戒就入佛位，但是还有一个就是说比较很重要的，就是希望能够出家，这个就是更进一步了哦，就菩萨能够出家。当然刚才也有讲，在家人要能够持这个菩萨戒是蛮困难，那出家会比较容易，因为出家的环境就像在圣城，它都是什么东西都是在道上，不像在家外面都是比较污染。我们讲就是人在江湖不由己，有很多事情我们没有办法，但是我们都会感染。那在圣城的话，修行就不一样。所以像很多都发心在道上，在道场啊，或者是万佛圣城啊，或者是这里啊，都能够接近这个道场修行，这个是很重要。刚才我讲到的就是真正要能够修得比较容易，就是能够出家修行这个是一个真正全部放下，就是刚才讲的，你要无我无什么东西，就是能够全部放下，这个就是能够走上出家的一个路子。当然，我也在这里也一样的鼓励大家，有机会要受菩萨戒，只要有机会，也是能够走上出家这个最好的路子。
So, okay, after holding the lay Bodhisattva precepts, the next step is to take the monastic precepts to become a Buddhist monk or nun. And as was said a moment ago, that being a Bodhisattva as a monastic, holding the Bodhisattva precepts as monastics is not that hard, while holding the Bodhisattva precepts as a layperson is very difficult. And why is this? And this is actually the case because, for instance, if you live in the monastery or at the city of 10,000 Buddhas, you'll find that everything around you is basically designed for you to cultivate. It's there to help you on this path. However, in the world, in the household, most of the things are just there to distract us, to kind of pull us away from the Tao. And so, therefore, in society, in the world, oftentimes it's far more difficult to practice the way. So, for us to want to cultivate, it's often valuable to draw near the monastery, so we have a pure place to practice in. So, if we really want to cultivate, leaving home is a very, very good thing to do. If we can really put it all down, really let it all go, not have a self, then this path of leaving home is really a wonderful path to take. So here, I encourage everyone to take the Bodhisattva precepts, but also, if you can, also go to the next step, which is be able to leave home, to go forth into the Buddhist Sangha.
提到这个出家，我想讲一个上人，他出家，在上人11岁的时候，他就有一天有一个人来讲说，你要如何没有这个烦恼生死的这个问题，因为他小的时候就看到有一个人死掉，一个小孩子，他就蛮怀疑，觉得不是，所以他就往这方面去探讨。刚好有一个人来讲这个，来他家里就提到说，要能够没有生死的话呢，就是要走上修行的道路。所以修行就是能够断生死。那后来他就听到这样子以后，他就把这个信息去跟他妈妈去请教，他有这种出家的这个意愿，他妈妈马上就称赞他，你有这样子的一个发心是非常可贵的。这个因为出家是 一种究竟的布施，就是你把你的身体全部都奉献给佛教，这是一个究竟的一个布施，这个是非常难得的。但是他妈妈也跟他讲说，因为那时候他还有其他的兄弟姐妹，因为他们都已经成家了。那上人他就跟上人讲说，你可不可以等我就是不再往生的时候，你再去出家？那上人也就这样子答应了。所以后来他上人出家，也就是他妈妈往生过后的时候出家。所以这个出家的因缘也是要很讲起来，每一个人出家有每一个人出家的因缘。这个那当然我们出家也是要考虑到家里，这个讲起来就是一个孝道。像我们今天诵这个地藏经就是一个孝经，所以这个是行孝道。当然上人在母亲过世以后，他去守墓这些，因为所以我们就不讲，再继续讲。我讲说这个出家的一个因缘。
So, talking about becoming a monastic, we can look at the Venerable Master Hua's life story. At 11 years old, somebody came to his home and told him that if you really want to have no afflictions, be able to transcend the cycle of rebirth, of death and rebirth, then you must cultivate the way. And at that time, at that young age, the Venerable Master already was exposed to death. He has seen a kind of a dead infant on the side of the road, and so in his mind he already had this question about birth and death and what this was all about. And so when he heard this, that to cultivate the way was a way out, he made a resolve that he wanted to leave home, to become a monastic and cultivate the way. So he went to his mother saying, I want to become a monk. And his mother reply was quite positive. She praised him, saying, that's very good, that's very valuable that you have this wish to leave home. This is a very ultimate way of giving yourself to the Dharma. It's an ultimate way of finding a solution in life. However, I'm old now, and your brothers and siblings have already started their own families. And so she told the Venerable Master, would you please wait for me to pass away before you leave home so you can take care of me? And so the Venerable Master agreed to that. And so only after his mother passed away did the Venerable Master leave home and become a monastic. So everybody's conditions to leave home is different. We need to consider all the various conditions. And we also need to consider our family. This principle, which is called xiao in Chinese, is filiality, is filial respect. This principle is highlighted, you can say is the theme of the sutra we recited this today, which is the Earth Store Sutra. This Earth Store Sutra is considered a sutra on filiality. So the Venerable Master was a very filial child, and when his mother passed away, he stayed by his mother's grave for a number of years. And we also another way of calling it is to observe filial practice next to his mother's grave for 3 years. But that's another story which I won't go into now.
讲到出家，也稍微提一下我自己出家的这个，因为我算晚年出家。那其实在像仙公上人，他11岁，他有这个出家的念头。然后我是在我来到美国以后，住在明尼苏达那边，那时候都已经40几岁了。那有一天我是想出家，但是我想出家的时候，因为我那时候有小孩子，我 一男一女。那这个你知道，女孩子就蛮重视这个，跟父亲就是比较接近。她一听到我要出家，她就哭啊哭啊，哭了一整晚。然后后来我就好好好好，那就没有再想出家的念头。所以你看这个因缘不一样，从11岁发心出家，然后像我就40几岁的时候有想过，但是也没有出家成。然后所以这个每一个人的因缘的出家的因缘都是不一样的，而且所以我想，不过我后来我晚年出家，就是所有的小孩子长大了没有什么挂碍了，这个出家我的情况是这样子。
So also talking about the becoming a monastic, my own story was I left home rather late in life. The Venerable Master had this resolve to leave home when he was 11 years old. For myself, I came to America and I lived in Minnesota. And I was around maybe a little about in my 40s. I actually had a thought about leaving home at that time. But I already had a family and had kids. I had one boy and one girl. I think people know that in terms of family relationships, usually the girl is very much closer to the father. And so when she heard that I wanted to become a monastic, she cried for one entire day. And so I couldn't bear that, so I didn't think about it again, and I didn't leave home. So everybody's conditions are different. So I didn't make it as a monastic at that point. So I left home quite late in life after my parents had all grown up. My kids have all grown up, and so without any, you could say, attachments or things to have to take care of, I could leave home.
关于在出家这个问题，在圣城几乎常常都会有人想要出家，所以这个出家的这个因缘，有时候我们要考虑到很周到，我们出家的发心以及各方面条件、环境或者是家里都要考虑。像在万佛圣城有几位想出家，但是因为他有小孩子还小，所以他申请出家，大部分在法师方面都会劝他说：“你稍微慢一点，等到小孩子长大了，因为小孩子他需要家里的，不管就是看他或者是这个很重要家庭的这个关系，这个看他们能够跟着家里生活，能够影响小孩子的后辈的生活，这个很重要，所以。”我们也不说完全他想申请出家就马上同意，有一些就看情况也会考虑他家庭的这个问题。
So for those who are hoping to become monastics, we have a number of people at the State of 10,000 Buddhas who would like to leave home. But to leave home, we really need to look at everyone's causes and conditions. We need to consider carefully the environment, the person, the family, the people he will affect or she will affect before they leave home. So you really want to consider things carefully, especially if they have young kids at home. So we have a number of people who apply and they have young kids, and we tell them, usually what the monks would tell them, or the Dharma masters would tell them, would be to encourage them to not go so fast, to take care of their responsibilities as a father or a mother and take care of the kids, because they will still need to maintain those family relations and be at home and fulfill their responsibilities. Because at home they can still influence their kids' future and be a good influence on their children, and then prepare their kids for the future in life. So when we're leaving home, you have to consider various conditions. So people can apply, but it's not the case that everybody immediately is accepted or is accepted. We want to consider various factors.
据我所了解，我们恒实法师，他是20几岁开始接近上人，所以他后来他出家，所以这个是一个很好的例子，给我们一个模范。那讲到这个因为今天我们也回向给他妈妈DRBA 那个他前2天往生，所以我也想把这个事情谈一下。就是实法师一直在提到他，因为一个西方人出家真的是不容易，然后尤其是家里方面的看待你去到学习佛法，因为大部分西方人都是接近基督教或者天主教，那接近佛法的话就比较少。那刚开始依照实法师讲，刚开始他妈妈也是有一点点顾忌，然后后来他在跟上人接触以后，然后修行以后，然后3步1拜，然后他妈妈就觉得非常不错，所以3步1拜完以后就去圣城那边去跟实法师见面，所以那时候有照了一张相，那这个相片是黑白的，那个照片的这个是我在就是前2年的时候，在如来寺整理这个房间的时候，我看到了。我当时我也不太肯定这个就是实法师的妈妈的照片，后来我就给实法师看，实法师说这个是我妈妈，这个也就是她3步1拜的时候完了以后再生成照的，所以他妈妈很高兴来看他儿子所修行的，然后上人也很高兴，然后看到都是非常的一个修行人，就是真的这个讲起来就是一个我们晚上所讲的一个真佛史的一个故事。当然我们每一个人有每一个人的因缘不同，这个是一个很好的例子。
So another example of leaving home is Reverend Heng Sure, who left home in his 20s. He's another good role model of somebody who left home here in the West. And when I'm talking about Reverend Heng Sure, his mother actually just passed away. And we today recite the Earth Sutra on her behalf and transfer merit to her. And I remember Reverend Heng Sure in the past would share his story and say how as a Westerner, becoming a monastic isn't that easy, especially when it comes to family. Because here in the West, most families are Christian, or not Buddhist at least. And so becoming a monastic is a very foreign thing. So he says that in the very beginning, his mom was not very supportive and was somewhat lonely and unhappy with his decision to become a monastic. But after his mother met the Venerable Master and Reverend Heng Sure spent a period of time cultivating, and also on the 3 steps 1 vow pilgrimage, he met Reverend Heng Sure. She came to the City of 10,000 Buddhas to meet Reverend Heng Sure after his pilgrimage. So 2 years ago, when I was cleaning the various rooms in the monastery at the City of 10,000 Buddhas, I found a black and white photo of Reverend Heng Sure and his mother. I wasn't sure if it was his mother. And so I showed it to Reverend Heng Sure. He said, "Oh yeah, that's my mom." And so it was after I completed the 3 steps 1 vow pilgrimage that she came and was very happy to see me. So this is another story of you could say a true Buddhist disciple. Okay, I think it actually might be a good time to, because I actually printed out a letter that I found from Reverend Heng Sure's mother that she wrote about her experiences of CDDB. I thought reading it might be nice. I think what Jin-Fo just said was that Reverend Heng Sure's mother just passed away. I think, was it 3 days ago? I think it was 3 days ago. Santianjian. 2 days ago? Thursday, yeah. So Friday. So Thursday. Yeah, so 2 days ago. And so Reverend Heng Sure is with his family now. And so I know that here in Berkeley we actually had quite a long and you can say a meaningful relationship with Reverend Heng Sure's mother, because as a monk, Reverend Heng Sure didn't really have things to give his mother, so the Berkeley community would actually have presents for his mother's birthday or for Christmas, would prepare gifts, and Reverend Heng Sure would go back home with a suitcase of items. And yes, yes, yeah. YC was saying that she also visited the monastery a number of times, so the monastery knows her quite well. But I thought this was a very nice letter that she wrote about her visit at the City of 10,000 Buddhas. So I was just going to read it for everybody, just to hear. You can hear the tone of voice of his mother and the kind of spirit of his mother in it. So after my son Christopher Clowery's ordination with Chan Buddhist master Xuanhua, he and a fellow monk made an 800-mile, 3 steps, 1 bow pilgrimage up the California coastal highway from Los Angeles to the City of 10,000 Buddhas, north of San Francisco, to promote world peace. They took 2 years and 9 months to complete this journey. And for those years and 3 more, Heng Sure, as my son is now called, kept a vow of silence, speaking aloud only to his teacher, Master Hua. I had not received any letters from him for 5 years, because his vow of silence also included correspondence by mail. Therefore, it was a great deal of anticipation that I flew from Ohio to California for a visit with my son when Master Hua, the abbot of the City of 10,000 Buddhas, invited me to celebrate my 61st birthday with Heng Sure. Okay. As a lifelong Methodist, Heng Sure has also been an active Methodist. I'll use Reverend Heng Sure. Reverend Heng Sure has also been an active Methodist in his younger years as well. I was eager to learn all I could about the religion that had captured my son's interest so completely that he had dedicated his life to it. I have never doubted Reverend Heng Sure's sincerity, but it was the era of cults, and I was skeptical about whether the abbot's motives were altruistic. Many other movements were not so sincere. As I drove through the impressive red pagoda roof gates of the City of 10,000 Buddhas with Fang Guowu, the laywoman who had picked me up at the airport, I felt as one does when approaching a foreign country. Probably people still have that feeling when you go to CDDB, entering a foreign country. I knew I wouldn't understand everything that was said or done, and I didn't know what was expected of me. Up the hill from the gate, I could see a large bronze sculpture of a Buddha under a high roof, and beside it, an enormous bronze bell. In the dining hall, the abbot sat on a raised platform in the center of one wall with about 25 monks and as many male guests to his left, and about 50 nuns and female guests to the right. The abbot was a stocky man in a gold-colored robe. His face was unlike anyone I had ever met. His expression was one of compassion that was guileless, yet wise. After getting acquainted with him, I had the eerie feeling he knew what I was thinking. At the first dinner, we ate our meal in silence. I discovered it allowed me to concentrate on the food in a way conversation prohibits. Buddhists not only savor each nuance of flavor, they contemplate the work it took to bring the food to the table. They consider whether their conducts merit receiving it, and how greed is a poison to the mind. They think of food as medicine to cure the illness of hunger. They take the food to help them cultivate the way to benefit all human beings. I tried everything that was served, but I still had some food left on my plate at the end of the meal. People, that's probably not so good. I didn't realize that this was fox paw until I followed my hostess in line and led to two large dishwashing kettles. We were to dip our plate first in soapy water and then the clear water. Someone had a clear mind before I could follow the routine. Obviously, Buddhists waste no food. One day when we had finished the meal, the abbot began speaking in Mandarin Chinese as one of the nuns translated into English. He announced, Reverend Heng Sure's mom, or mama, is with us to celebrate her birthday. It was the signal of one of the nuns to bring out a cake for us to enjoy. I had not expected the abbot to observe our Western tradition. It reassured me that he was ready to adopt American customs. The exchange afterward with other mothers touched me on a deeper level. One of the American nuns, an Asian guest, and I were asked to talk about our sons. The nun was a quote-unquote left-home person, a man or woman who has taken the Buddhist vows and broken family ties to be part of the Buddhist order. In her earlier life, she had a son. The Malaysian mother and I both had sons who had left home to become monks. We were of different ages and had come from different cultures, but we had the common bond of a mother's love for her child, and we shared the same sense of loss. The Malaysian mother also had my concern for our sons being swept up in beliefs we felt might exploit their youthful zeal. But my stay at the monastery convinced me that my mistrust and doubt I had carried were of my own making, rather than based on reality. I realized after getting to know the abbot, I had misjudged his purpose and Reverend Heng Sure's judgment. I agree with the nun who said, now it is time for you to learn from your son. One day the monks arranged for a liberating of life ceremony, planned in honor of my visit. Buddhists in San Francisco purchased turtles destined for the city's restaurants and brought them in crates to the monastery. They were carried into the Buddha hall and laid out in front of the altar, where they scrabbled and clawed the wooden crates frantically. When the gong sounded for the prayers and the chantings to begin, the turtles became very quiet, almost as if they were soothed by the sound. The prayers were for their well-being because the Buddhists believe that by not ending their lives, the turtles can continue to strive towards a higher form, rather than having to start over again in the endless cycle of birth and death. After the ceremony, my hostess drove me to a nearby lake where the turtles were to be released. I have never held a turtle larger than a silver dollar, and these were the size of dinner plates. But each person there was expected to pick one up and carry it to the water. I chose one that looked docile, but as I took hold of him, midships, his little feet became 4 rotors that had to keep from clawing my shirt and slacks. He was as anxious to gain the water as I was to put him down, so it was a quick trip. When I eased him into the water, he disappeared beneath the muddy water immediately, and I thought the ceremony was finished. Guo Wu said, "Watch, they will thank us." I thought she was joking, but out in the lake, about 50 feet, little heads began to pop up. The turtles turned, looked at us, and disappeared again. Guo Wu said, "Keep watching." In a minute or two, further out in the lake, the turtle's head appeared again, turned and looked back. I couldn't believe it. Guo Wu said, "They will thank us 3 times. And they did. I can't explain it. I just know it happened. And it was a very satisfying act of kindness that I enjoy remembering when I see turtle soup on the menu. Before I returned home, the abbot and I had a conversation through an interpreter. He told me, the Buddha says you can believe in your God and Buddha too. That your God is like a parent to you, his child. If you do something bad, he forgives you. Buddha has an adult-to-adult relationship with you. If you do something bad, you're accountable for your actions. The many kindnesses of the Buddhists made an impression that has stayed with me. They live their religion in a way that I admire. I know Reverend Heng Sure will never marry nor give me grandchildren, which is disappointing. But as a Buddhist teacher, he is influencing many more children than he would ever have as a father. It makes him happier than anyone I know, and I can honestly say I'm proud that my son is a Buddhist. So it's a very nice letter. So we have a little bit of time. I was going to share a little bit about this section of the sutra, which is talking about the natures of all dharmas and having this wish to save the world and cultivate with vigor. And so since Jin-Fo we ended up talking a lot about the Bodhisattva precepts, I know there's a number of people here who might be completely new, and that might be a foreign concept. So just to explain it briefly, basically in Buddhism, we take, you could say, precepts as a way to formally commit ourselves to an ethical life. It gives us a framework to cultivate from. And in the West, we often think Buddhism as meditation. But in fact, in the Buddhist tradition, it says that it's a threefold practice. It starts with precepts, this ethical lifestyle. Then it moves to concentration, which is meditation. And then it goes to wisdom. So you go precepts, samadhi, or concentration, and wisdom. So you start with a moral, virtuous life. Then you can cultivate meditation. And then by having a still mind and a pure life, you see things clearly. You can have wisdom. And so that's the spirit here. And here the Bodhisattva, through that wisdom that has come from living a pure life and cultivating his mind and meditating, his or her mind, and meditating, she has wisdom. And then this compassionate wish to help the world comes forth, a wish to save the world and to help living beings. And so the Bodhisattva precepts, you could say, it's another level of commitment. So the first basic guidelines for a practitioner in the Buddhist tradition is the 5 precepts: not killing, not stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, and no intoxicants. So those 5 are you could say, the foundation for the Buddhist life. And I have to say, if you actually make that commitment, you find your life changes very quickly. If you really seriously make that commitment. I think pretty much all of us who end up taking those precepts and start cultivating the Buddhist path, I wish I knew these things earlier. Everybody has that thought. It's like, I wish I knew these principles earlier because I just made so many mistakes. Then I look back, and when you look through your life through those precepts, you go, wow, I create a lot of suffering for myself and other people throughout my life. And the experiences after you hold those precepts for a while is that, wow, my life is very smooth. I don't have all these difficulties that I see my friends or other people having, because all of a sudden these basic things about how I deal with life are already decided. I just don't lie. A situation comes up when I can find an easy way out by saying a lie. I've already committed I won't do it, so I just don't say it. And I take the consequences of whatever that is. But by doing that a consistent number of times, you're able to just be responsible as a person. You learn from your mistakes. And so people then end up leading a very ethical, you could say, good life. And so that's the first step, is taking the 5 precepts. After that, people take the lay Bodhisattva precepts for lay people. And these are, as the Dharma Master Jin-Fo said, the 6 major, 28 minor precepts. And they basically take the Dharma and the responsibility for the Dharma to another level. And so in our classes, it's interesting because as I said, the 2 genders in this, right now the classes are split up. And then in the men's side, we actually have it split up by language, which is actually kind of nice because I'm helping with the class quite a bit. So you have just 20 men who are all speaking the same language. If you have to do 2 languages or 3 languages, sometimes the principles get lost in the conversation. So we can actually have a very meaningful discussion about how we can hold the precepts in our lives and how we can take these guidelines and apply it to all the situations we have in life. And so in addition to the 5 precepts I just described, in addition to that, there's additional precepts. So those 5 precepts are what you don't do. But in the Bodhisattva precepts, it actually adds things that you do. Like for instance, if you see a sick person on the road, you actually have to help them. You have to help them and then make sure they have accommodations and they're well taken care of. You can't just leave them by the side of the road. So the Bodhisattva precepts have an additional element of an active quality. You have to go and do good. It's not just refraining from bad, which the 5 precepts are refraining from bad, which in Buddhism actually is a really high good, is that if we can just stop doing bad things, a lot of goodness can come forth. But here in the Bodhisattva precepts, not just refraining bad, you're actually actively doing good. So if somebody's sick or kind of deserted on the side of the road, you have to help them out. You can't just leave them by the side of the road. For instance, there's a sense of actually being respectful to one another. So you have this kind of resolve that I am going to take care of my parents, take care of my elders, support the monastery. That's like a commitment. And so I think for parents, it's probably one of the persons in the group says, my son already told me that he's not going to take care of me when I grow old. I said, yeah, that's probably, because we actually had a long conversation about American culture and Asian culture. We actually have a lot of overseas people, so we have talked about Western culture and Asian culture. And some people were saying, well, actually in Italy, that expectation of parents and kids is still there. You still have this relationship that's still pretty strong. But here in America, oftentimes it's the kids grow up and they just leave their parents behind in many ways. It's like the mentality, which we had a long conversation, is that you parents, I had no choice in the matter. The parents gave birth to me. So what responsibility do I have for my parents? It's their fault I was born. And that's kind of the mentality here in America when we're born. We're 18 and we just go off and live our life. And our parents' needs and wishes and various things is maybe a consideration, but it's definitely not a primary consideration. We live our life and we try our best to maybe help our parents. But in the Dharma, actually, we really emphasizes that our parents was a very important beginning to our life. And if we really looked at it, you'll find that there's a lot of gratitude that one has towards our parents, which we want to connect to. We want to make an effort to support. And so part of the precepts is actually making that a commitment. I am going to take care of my parents. And so one of the Westerners in the group was, I'm not sure if I really like my parents. My parents weren't really that great parents, And so we had some discussion about what it meant to take care of our parents, from that in the class. What else is there? We talked about, not having false speech, about using speech that is truthful and beneficial for other people. And always the question comes up is, what about white lies? What if I have to tell a white lie? Today we had the story of a Sangha Bodhisattva, kind of a little bit maybe saying a white lie to his younger brother that he was sick, to get him to come and recite the sutra to resolve on the Mahayana, the great vehicle dharmas. So what about that? What if you're saying something that's ultimately going to be beneficial? Probably the rule of thumb is, for most of us, just try to be as honest as possible. There's probably not too many situations you have to use a white lie to get by in life. But that was a principle we discussed. And so what I find very wholesome whenever I'm in these classes is like, it's really like a school for being a good person. I think to myself, gosh, shouldn't we have this more often in life? We go to school to make money, to learn how to get ahead in life, but we never actually go to school to actually learn to be a good person. How do you be filial to your parents? How do I, be respectful to my peers and my friends and my relatives and my fellow monastics? How do I have good deportment? We talked about deportment, how you carry yourself in your body. We had a long discussion about that because the precepts, on one side is the precepts we take as commitments that describe. The other is actually deportment, is how you hold your body, which has a big effect on how you hold your mind. One of the monks said, there's a quote from Venerable Master Empty Cloud, who was a great Chan master of modern times, and he said, if the body is straight, you don't have a crooked shadow. Now that makes sense. Basically, if you can keep your body very proper, very upright, then you won't have shadows in your life. You won't have your shadow won't be slanted and crooked. And so the place to start, and for many of us to cultivate the way, is first to make our bodies straight. We have good posture, mindful of our body, be relaxed, And actually has a big effect on our mind if you really look at it. Because, I mean, you could tell. Some people, when they're depressed, they're just like this all the time. And he's like, he says, maybe just kind of take a breath, relax, open up your heart. But you can feel it when you feel anxious or your shoulders get tense, etc. That's your body. Our bodies really kind of manifest what's the state of our mind. So because our bodies are so concrete, it's such a concrete thing that we can see. Sometimes our minds can play tricks on us. My experience is that my mind plays tricks on me. I can say I'm not angry, or I'm not stressed, or I'm not da 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 da. But when I look at my body, I'm definitely doing that because my body doesn't lie. It's like you're really tense. Your breath is so short and kind of anxious. So our breath and our body really is a good barometer for our actual state of mind. So to start the cultivation of the precepts is to really, one place to look is your deportment. So the saying in Buddhism is you walk like a gentle breeze. You don't walk like a whirlwind. You just kind of walk calmly and gently. You sit like a bell. You sit and you're not scratching yourself and moving back and forth and swinging around all the time. You're steady. You walk like a gentle breeze. Sit like a bell. Stand like a pine tree. So you're straight. You don't stand crooked or sideways. And you lie down like a bow. What that means is you're leaning on your right side, and your right hand's under your head, and your left hand is on your thigh. You'll see the image of the Buddha when he entered nirvana. That's the posture he took. And so that's what's the recommended sleeping posture. And so by doing that, one's able to be mindful throughout the day. And you start by doing that, you develop a mindfulness then you can take into your meditation practice. So meditation isn't just sitting there in full lotus on your meditation cushion, but something you take throughout your day. And the precepts just as an additional level of, you could say, commitment to that. Allows you to be more mindful throughout the day, rather than just sit down and then you just do your day in a kind of a rush, but then you get back to your meditation. You're just mindful throughout the entire day. Okay, there's a lot more for sure in the Bodhisattva precepts, but I won't go into too much because it's almost time. I don't know if there's any questions or thoughts, if anybody has anything they would like to add. If not, did you announce next week we don't have them Saturday morning? We do. So on the August 9th, actually we won't have a Dharma assembly here in the morning that we usually do. We're actually having a memorial service for one of the actually a lot of the parents are passing away, I think, at this time. I think we're probably if you look at the ages, it's probably the time when parents are passing away for the senior disciples. And so another one of the senior disciples' father just passed away, so we'll be holding a memorial service for him this Saturday, this upcoming August 9th at 9 o'clock. And so people who would like to join for that, you're welcome to join. But we'll have a memorial service. And the August 9th will be a busy day. We'll have a memorial service, and then in the afternoon, there's actually a Guqing recital at 3 o'clock. So we have a Guqing recital, and we have a memorial service in the morning at 9, and a Guqing recital at 3 p.m. Saturday. Oh, it's Sunday. Sunday's the Guqing recital? Is it August 9th? It's Saturday. Sunday or Saturday? Recital. The Sunday is the classes. We have Sunday Guqing classes, but there's a special recital where the teacher is actually having a number of his students come and play here in the Buddha Hall. So that's on Saturday, 3 p.m. Yeah, okay. Confused me for a moment. So yeah. Yeah, we'll still recite the Buddha's name. Yeah, the recital's 3 p.m. The Buddha recitation. So So yeah, we'll try to have Buddha recitation. We'll see how it gets arranged. If they need the hall beforehand, we'll probably recite the Buddha's name in the dining hall. Yeah, depending on the situation. So is there anything else? Oh yeah. Okay. Mm. Okay, so just to repeat for those who maybe didn't hear clearly, there's going to be a Buddha recitation tomorrow, starting at 7:30 in the morning, going to 5 p.m. Almost 5 p.m. And they'll transfer the merit to Mrs. McCaff, which is Reverend Heng Sure's mother. And so people are welcome to come participate. You don't have to come for the whole thing. If you just want to come for part of it, maybe for an hour or two, you're welcome to. They'll have chairs in the back for people to sit. I believe there's also going to be lunch here as an offering, so you can join the group for the meal and recite the Buddha's name. So it's a very good way to kind of come into the peaceful atmosphere of the monastery.
And for people who cannot come to the monastery to recite, they can recite Amitabha's name at home for 10 minutes or 30 minutes or 1 hour. It's dedicated to
Okay, so if you would like to recite at home as well, you can recite for 10 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour, and transfer merit as well. So it's not limited to being here. If you want to do it at home, definitely welcome to do that. Yes?
Just one quick comment. Very interestingly, we talk about precepts a lot tonight. So just one comment to the Dharma friends here tonight. Go for it, don't be afraid.
Go for it, don't be afraid.
We are all learning. I still make mistakes, and I learn from it, I correct it, and I move on. That's about life. So don't be afraid of making mistakes. Go for it.
Alan says, go for it, don't be afraid. If we make mistakes in life, it's okay. We just try our best and go forward. So yeah. No, it's a good group. You make really good friends. Probably these people who take the Bodhisattva precepts together have probably been together for a long, long time. If you believe in past lives, probably many lives. Yes? Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of people there. I would say there's probably a total of 230, I'm guessing. 230. About 150, I'm guessing. 150 women. There's maybe 63 men total. So I think there's maybe, yeah. So there's a large group. So over 200 people there taking the precepts, for sure. And they're all really sincere. You can, as I said, you can see the people's sincerity. They want to try their best to get the precepts correct in their mind and hold it in their lives. And they know a lot of things. It's taught. This is probably going to be the most difficult thing I ever do in my life, but I'm going to give it a try. I said, yeah, it's probably true. It's worth trying. Yeah. So if people are interested, we're happy to share those with you, and you can take a look at them. There's no pressure though, and the thing that's nice about the Dharma and the precepts is that it's basically comes upon request. It's not that the monastics are kind of forcing people to take precepts. It's basically people are actually sincere in wanting to take them, and so the monastics can transmit them to the lay people. And so the idea is in the Dharma, we all are in the letter as Mrs. McCaff said, the Buddha is like an adult to adult relationship. It's like that father to kid relationship. Is basically, you make your commitments. If you want to make this commitment, you're welcome to. I can give you this commitment if you want it. But if you don't want to make it, there's no pressure. You live your life, and when you're ready, you're ready. So that's the spirit. 菩萨戒是没有年龄限制的，
这个是任何人都可以受戒，尤其是比较年纪大的，这个是一个。另外就是这个菩萨戒不是每一年都有，而且只能够好像据我所知道，刚像我们有时候5、6年一次，有时候很快也要2、3年，所以不是每一年都有，所以要大家还没有受的要把握时间。另外一个就是提醒大家，真的假使是有做错、有犯了一个戒的话，要赶快忏悔就可以，你马上可以忏悔，或者是他有规定，就是你要跟法师忏悔，或者跟你的受完戒的人可以忏悔，只要忏悔就可以。尤其是像一些像，因为他有像斋日啊、6斋日10斋日，讲6斋日就是说你要守这个只能够吃晚上不吃啊，有时候你会忘记吃糖果啊，或者吃什么东西，因为习惯性，尤其是在家人啊，常常朋友在一起有时候就忘记，就塞在口里面忘记吃了，那你就赶快忏悔，或者是跟其他人忏悔就可以。所以不是说真的那么困难去守这个戒，是有开源的，这个跟大家提醒。
So Jin-Fo said, there's no age limit to take the precepts, so everyone can take them, even elders. But also these precepts aren't transmitted every year at the 10,000 Buddhas. Sometimes they're transmitted every 5, 6 years. Maybe the fastest, maybe every 2, 3 years. So it's a very precious opportunity. So you missed it this time, which I'm sure everybody here actually is probably why a large group of people are not here tonight, is because they're at the 10,000 Buddhas. But for the 6, for instance, if you do make a mistake taking the precepts, you can repent and reform. You can kind of repent of the mistake, and then it's okay. So for instance, one of the precepts is actually holding to the 6 fasting days, where in those 6 days of the month, one doesn't eat past the midday, and that's one of the practices. So as a lay people, often it's very easy to forget because of the habit of just eating throughout the day. And so maybe a piece of candy or something. So you can always repent and then kind of and recommit, and so that to the vow. So that's one way that you can it's not that difficult to hold. As long as you are constantly mindful and try your best in the process, it'd be really good. So yeah, that's the principle. Okay. So doesn't this have anything else? Okay, so we'll do our transference first. It's on the back of that sheet where we dedicated merit. And this is the time, for instance, if you would like to transfer to Reverend Heng Sure's mother, Mrs. Deborah McCaff. She could probably use some support. Or if anybody else that you care about, or any cause that you care about that you would like to transfer to, please do. And so it looks like this. Okay. Dedication of merit. Goodness, luminous. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may their minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light break the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Stand up and bow to the Buddhas.